Is it easy to overreact? You know, when you lose a final, lose a game 6 the way you did, and suddenly look up and say, "Oh my God, we need 10 different things or whatever to compete with a team like that."
It is, and it's my job, once again, to step away from the trenches and hopefully be able to look at things, more, objectively, and not, panic and make a rash or a quick decision about a player. I don't think there's any rush for us to do anything right now. As I mentioned earlier, we haven't even sat down with ownership and talked about what the future may hold in terms of the summer and next season. But I understand, in particular yesterday, the newspapers, had comments about players that should be traded or might not be here next year. I understand that's a part of the business. And I actually talked to some of the players about that today, because we've not had those discussions internally. So the fact that newspapers would speculate who we might trade, that's bothersome to me, and it should be bothersome to our players, because we haven't even had those discussions. How would anybody know what we're thinking of doing?
If you were to add a player to this team, what do you think this team needs to get over that hump, the championship hump?
Andrew Bynum.
You think that solves everything?
I don't think it solves everything, but if I had a player to add, that's the player I'd like to add.
That isn't on your roster.
Well, that's not on my roster, and we don't have Andrew Bynum back, and we don't have Trevor back. What do you...
Well, you have both of those guys back.
Okay, we have them both back, and would I add a player to this team, assuming those guys came back next year? And assuming we sign the free agents that we have this summer?
Sure.
It's a complicated question.
I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to make a bunch of assumptions really before I answer that question. So I won't answer it.
Mitch, what about Andrew's extension? Is this the type of thing where you need to see him running around on the court in a few months and scrimmaging, maybe even training camp? Do you think that that'll be a later in the offseason type of process?
Well, it's not something that's been discussed internally yet, and I hope to have a meeting with ownership within a week, and we will discuss that. Clearly, a player's ability to be on the court and show what he can do, would affect, his status in terms of, a contract going forward. But, the injury is not a career-altering injury, which was our concern from the very beginning. And when we got the MRI back and it was diagnosed as a sublexed patellar tendon, our feeling was that this should not affect Andrew's career going forward at all. So we don't think it will. And the surgery he had, although all surgeries are major, it was not a major surgery. It was something where they went in, they cleaned out a loose particle, and they cut back on a flap. So we don't think either one of those things are going to affect his ability to play basketball for the next 10 to 15 years.
How gratifying, in a lot of ways, has this season been for you in terms of just seeing your decisions, not panicking, really waiting in patience pay off the way they have?
Well, it's gratifying to me that our fans have embraced this team. That the patience that Dr. Buss and Jimmy Buss showed has been rewarded with a young team that has a window, I believe, to win going forward. Kobe's going to turn 30. If he plays till he's 35 or 36, why don't we have at least a 5 or 6 year window? But the fans in the city embraced this team this year. I'm not quite sure I've seen anything like it, and that's gratifying to me.
Mitch, after everything that went on in the past year or so, how was it with Kobe yesterday? I mean, sort of signing off on the season.
What do you mean by sort of signing off?
How was just kind of putting
the exit meeting?
Yeah.
He was kind of chipper. It was certainly different than last year's exit meeting. Reading the comments in the paper today, it seemed like he's comfortable with the group of players we have, whether there's a change or not. There's a period of time, like I said, where you really have to work your way through this as a player. So, he'll not be able to let go of this, for a while. But on his behalf, he does have a busy summer. So once he starts playing for the Olympic team, this is going to become a quick faded memory. And I'm not sure the other players, can drop it as quick as he can. But because he has to play for the Olympic team and refocus his direction of the off season, he'll probably be able to, get over this quicker than other players would.
And postponing his surgery to the point that he would, probably miss part of training camp, is that something you just sort of give him a little latitude on?
He's shown that he can play with the injury. Is it going to affect training camp and maybe the beginning of the season? If it does, that's okay. I don't know how you can, approach a player with the passion that he has about playing for his country this summer and say, listen, you really should have this surgery now. I think it's, the window for him to participate in the Olympics is closing. The next one's going to be in 4 years. He'll be 34 years old. So this is his chance, and I know he wants a gold medal. When he has the surgery in September, whether it's 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, we'll be able to survive.